Hello guys, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, thank you, and welcome back if you are not. Wesley's come, he'll probably leave in a second, but he's come to join. So yeah, as you've probably guessed from the title of today's video, I wanted to kind of do a bit of a chat about your cycle and how this can impact your your energy, your mood, and then therefore how that can impact your workouts and nutrition. This applies to all goals, and I'll touch on different goals throughout. But this was such a game changer to learn for me. And I also just want to reiterate before we get into it that everyone is so different. I will touch on some of my experiences, but I know from working as a personal trainer with so many women that everybody is very different. So it's really important to understand what works for you. And I think, I've touched on this in other videos, having that greater self-awareness is so important and makes all the difference to not only like your physical progress, but also how you feel mentally. So really wanted to share this one and just go into a bit more detail because I feel like I could talk about this topic. If you follow me on Instagram and even TikTok, you'll see how much I talk about this, and obviously I do on this channel too. So yeah, just wanted to have a bit more of a sit down one, bit of a chit chat, and talk through everything with you guys. So first up, just a really brief overview. There's 4 phases. So there's the menstrual phase. This is your period. The first day of your period is when your new cycle starts. Then we have your follicular phase, which pretty much starts from when your period ends. And then you go into ovulation, which is around the midpoint of your cycle. And then the luteal phase, which is at the second half of your cycle, and then in the build up to your next period. Again, everybody's very different in terms of their cycle length and their phase lengths as well. So tracking symptoms, again, like your energy, your mood, all these different things can help you to kind of understand what your normal is. I personally use the Clue app. I've used that for like over 5 years now, since I came off contraception. That's just what works for me. There's so many apps out there, and I know there's a lot of new ones now that have come out since then. So I would definitely recommend try a few and see what works for you. Even good old-fashioned pen and paper is always a good one, just to kind of write down how you're feeling and seeing if you can notice a pattern. I know like the Apple Watch and stuff, they all do them now. So yeah, just finding what works for you. But they're the kind of main 4 phases, and one really kind of like easy way to think about those phases is thinking about them like the seasons. This really helps me in my mind as I'm quite a visual person. So thinking about the menstrual phase as like your winter, the follicular phase is your spring, the ovulation is your summer, and the luteal phase is your autumn. So starting with the menstrual phase, like I say, this is the bleed and your inner winter. So if you're thinking about it as a season, thinking about like, you want to be warm, cozy, you're slowing down a bit, you're almost hibernating, like a lot of animals hibernate in the winter. So that in my mind really helps me in relation to what my body might need around this time, and my mind of course. So you might want to slow down on the workouts, you might want to take some extra rest days, you might want to swap in some yoga, potentially some like yin yoga, something more restorative, or even just walking or stretching. Like I say, just like a complete rest. This might serve your body much better at this time. It's not really the time of your cycle for PBs. Now I know some women feel like they can really push, and I know towards the end of my bleed I do feel a lot better, and I'm in that kind of phase where like my energy's starting to rise again. But the first couple of days for me, they are either going to be something slower or a complete rest. Again, just seeing what works for you. But like I say, just thinking about it like the winter can really help, and same with your foods. You want like really kind of iron rich, like restorative like meals that are going to help you and basically replenish like from like the blood loss, the iron that you've lost, sorry, from like blood loss and things like that. And there's a lot going on inside, so your body's using more energy, so it's going to need a lot more nutrient dense food to really help to replenish those stores. So that's just like a really brief overview kind of way to think about it. So I hope that helps someone as well, because I know that it really helps me. But yeah, like I say, they are just some options, but it's doing what works for you. I'm a personal trainer, I'm a coach. I would not necessarily recommend that people are switching up their workouts every week, which is what cycle syncing often says. However, everybody is very different, and this is why I work with my clients on a case-by-case basis. And I know even myself, like if I'm missing one strength workout one week to just maybe do some yin yoga, and I'm consistent for the rest of the time, then that's not going to make that big of an impact. So it's just understanding that, because that's kind of like, you know, it's down to the individual. And not every month, like some months I will just be able to go and do my usual strength session. I just know that it's not necessarily going to be a massive PB week, or I'm going to make any like big progressions, and that's okay. And again, that's something that used to really bug me, like when I didn't understand my cycle. I used to think that I was not making any progress, you know, everything was a waste of time, what's the point? It was really demotivating. I thought there was something wrong with me, when actually it wasn't. So actually learning about this and working with my body has served me a lot greater in terms of my progress, but also really helped my mental health as well. So like I say, I would always recommend to still be following like a structured program, including some strength workouts in there, but this is just very generalized advice. You know, like I say, different things will work for different people, but I'm not necessarily saying that you have to switch up your workouts every week. There's just like some days, weeks where you might just need to swap some things in and out, but what you're doing consistently over time is what really matters. So then from the menstrual phase, like I say, we'll go into the follicular phase, which is your inner spring. So in the menstrual phase, your hormones are at their lowest level, but they are now starting to rise, estrogen in particular. So this can be put to good use. You're likely going to be feeling pretty good in your sessions. You might want to add in some more cardio around this time. Think about like spring, like I say, like the weather's getting warmer, like, you know, the like flowers are starting to bloom, like the animals are being born, like you're kind of like being reborn is kind of how I like to think about it, and you're starting to bloom again. So that's, again, in my mind, what really helps. And the same, like kind of, so with your workouts, like I say, you might want to be adding like a few extra bits of like cardio in, and you're able to push for those PBs again. In terms of your strength sessions, like you can still include things like Pilates and bar, maybe a bit more like, you know, like power Pilates, more higher intensity stuff, whatever like works for you, like I say. And then same with your nutrition. This is kind of like lighter with like sustained, you want kind of more sustained energy here as your hormones are rising again. So like lighter grains and stuff can really help, and your body doesn't tend to need as much food yet. It still needs enough though, I can't reiterate that enough, but not as much as like the menstrual and the luteal phases, where there's lots more going on inside. So that's like a good way to think about the follicular phase, like the energy's rising and you are starting to bloom again, like what the flowers and everything do in the spring. And then from there we'll go into the ovulation phase, which is your inner summer. Arguably the best month. Now I have to say, I say the best month, I really love the autumn, but I'm not so keen on the luteal phase. But obviously, you know, one of the better months, like thinking about the summer again, like your inner summer, you know, it's like a really nice month, everything feels good, the sun's shining, it's great, like all that kind of vibe. So your energy's at its highest here, estrogen peaks, you feel really good, you're likely going to have a higher energy output. So you can put that to good use again in your workouts, another PB week, another week to maybe add in some more cardio. You tend to feel more social here, so you might want to try like a class, like a spinning class even, something like that. And same with your nutrition, pretty similar to the follicular phase, like quite light, lighter meals, but still obviously get enough of the macro and the micronutrients to keep you feeling your best. Fiber intake is obviously really important throughout your cycle anyway for gut health, but really important around this time because of your rising and peaking estrogen, so that when it drops down, it kind of helps to balance things out. So if you eat quite low fiber at the moment, I'd recommend slowly building it up, but you want to be aiming for around 30 grams a day, and that will really help on top of your water intake as well. So something to think about in this phase, so that you don't get the effects of something that is known as estrogen dominance. There's conflicting research on this, but basically you don't want too much estrogen in your system, because then that can cause some not very nice symptoms and side effects. And I know a lot of women really struggle with this phase in terms of experiencing like pre-period like symptoms, kind of like bloating, feeling lethargic, not feeling good, not feeling that bright, sparkly ovulation phase feel it the typical way. Again, this is, you know, very like a vague guideline, and what we are all very different, but keeping on top of your nutrition and your movement can really help with that. Obviously everyone's very different, and some women can be more sensitive to estrogen than others, so that might be why they don't feel as good. But like I say, you know, like really like making sure you keep on top of your fibre intake, get your movement in, your water, and those things can make a big difference in this phase. Annoyingly, is the shortest phase for me anyway, because I tend to feel pretty good in the follicular and ovulation phases compared to the luteal phase, which happens after ovulation ends and is pretty much the second half of your cycle. So this is the longest phase. Some women will have slightly shorter ones, but I know for me this is my longest phase, and this is like your inner autumn. So again, you want to be starting to slow down. Initially you're going to still feel pretty good, because once estrogen drops, you might feel that bit of a lull because it drops quite dramatically after ovulation, but it rises slightly again with progesterone. So you can still feel pretty good around this time. Also forgot to mention that your testosterone's at its highest around ovulation, which is why it is pretty good for hitting PBs. Again, it's nowhere near like what males have, so you're not going to get big and bulky from lifting weights. Reminder on that, but I thought I would add that in there. But anyway, into the luteal phase. So yeah, your estrogen and your progesterone rise up here. So the first half you'll feel pretty good. As I say, you might feel that lull. I know I really feel this, and again, because I've been like kind of tracking my cycle for so long, I feel like I'm very in tune with my body. I notice when I leave ovulation and enter into the luteal phase because of that dramatic hormone drop, and then it rises again. So I know if I have a day where I feel a bit off, I tend to feel all right again the next day, and my energy's kind of back, and I feel pretty good for the first half of my luteal phase when those hormones are rising again. And then they start to drop the closer you head towards the bleed, which is when you can start to feel those gorgeous pre-period symptoms in terms of, you know, like bloating, PMS, like low mood, low energy, not feeling your greatest. So this phase is the longest, but it differs. So in terms of the first half, you know, you're still feeling pretty good. You should still be able to be like progressing with your workouts. You still might want to include some cardio in there, but probably something a bit lower impact, like maybe an incline walk or just an outdoor walk, maybe not doing like any of the HIIT stuff. Again, just seeing how you feel. And then obviously just like Pilates and whatever else you like to include in there. And then as you head into the second half, it's probably not going to be a time for PBs. Again, it might be, but just not to get frustrated with yourself if you feel like you're not progressing from the week before, like, because you might have just been progressing for the last few weeks, and then it's got to this week and you're like, what is wrong? Like, you feel like your strength and your energy's just gone. And this is like the time that used to really get me. I used to be like, what on earth is wrong with me? Like, what is wrong with me? Like, everything I'm doing obviously isn't working, blah, 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 blah. When it wasn't. It's just, again, because of the change in your hormones, this can affect your energy levels, and a lot more starting to go on internally that you can't even feel. And that is using up a lot of energy, and your metabolism actually increases around this time by around 10%. I think it's like 5 to 10%. So I would always recommend to increase your calories slightly, even just by a few hundred. You might even want to come up to maintenance in the build up to your period if you're in a deficit. As this can really help to manage those energy levels and keep you feeling more sustained. It is vital that you have more carbs in this phase. Like, I would highly recommend and make sure you are eating enough, especially in this phase, because it really helps. So that increase in carbs can make a massive difference to your energy, your mood, and really help to lessen those PMS symptoms. So again, just thinking about like the autumn, like you want to kind of start to slow things down a little bit, you know, having more carby, like wholesome food to help you feeling good, and again keeping on top of your fiber intake here, as well as your B vitamins to help during this phase, like I say, with your energy. So things like chickpeas, cod, turkey, they're all really good for around this phase. Yeah, like that's quite a brief kind of overview, and the way that really helped me to kind of apply that to like my workouts and my nutrition, and obviously just seeing how I feel at the time. I think it's quite nice to have a bit of a guideline and thinking, okay, like what could I do at this time, and like kind of knowing what to expect. Okay, this might not be a PB week, but how am I actually feeling today? So not kind of letting it have a bit of a placebo effect, I suppose, and kind of like, oh well, I'm during my period, so there's no point in trying today. Whereas you might go to the gym and have a really good session. It can surprise you, and like I say, every month can be different, and it's actually normal for your cycle to not be exactly the same every month. Like that's definitely not the aim, but you will notice common things that happen each month to you to get a better understanding of like what is your normal. And anything that you're concerned about, by the way, please go to your doctor, your GP, go and speak to someone and really push to get answers, to put your mind at ease for anything that you're unsure of. Again, this is actually a way to take control of your health and go to them with lots of information of like, I've been tracking my cycle for X amount of time and I feel this way and it's not normal. And when you've got that data there, it really helps, because because a lot of the time, like I've had this in the past where they're like, oh no, go away and do this, you've already got it. And it can kind of speed up the process, which I know here in the UK can massively help, because it can take a long time to kind of get to the bottom of things. It's like I say, they call it your 5th vital sign for a reason. It's another way to see if everything is okay for you and see that you're like feeling good, from the inside, like I say. So, your cycle tracking and getting in tune with your body isn't just for getting pregnant, or even use as a contraception method. It is about so much more than that, and I really wish that I'd known this sooner. So I really hope that this video helps to just kind of give you a bit of an overview and a guideline. I'm happy to answer any questions below, and also happy to do some more in-depth videos as well, so please feel free to pop them below. As like I say, it all just gives me ideas for what people want to see for like the next videos. And as I said, I could talk about this for ever and a day. Something that, again, I live and breathe myself. I help a lot of my clients understand, just like educating them with it. And as I said, with working with people on a one-to-one personalized basis, I can give them like that first-hand kind of feedback. So this is just a very kind of general brief overview. But as I said, taking control of your health is really important. So yeah, I really hope that this video has helped, guys. I just realized how I've literally done this pretty much in one take, which I'm quite impressed about. But as I said, I could talk about it all day long. So yeah, I will end the video here. Bit of a shorter one than usual from me, but like I say, it's pretty just me just sat here waffling on. But a bit of a podcast when you're on a walk. But yeah, like I say, any questions, pop them below. Would love to help by doing more longer format videos like this. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you have enjoyed this one. It really helps me, again, to know kind of what kind of you want to see from me, what's helpful for you. And I will see you on the next one.